So now we're going to look at the deliver stage of the consumption frequency toolkit, developing tactics. So how we can look across these opportunities in brand and product, in mass communications and proximity marketing to inform consumption frequency. So to deploy these strategies and tactics meaningfully to achieve those outcomes. And as we look at the journey that we've been on, we've looked at identifying the product opportunity. So Lucie's taken us through the opportunity selection toolkit. We've identified the category that provides most potential for sustainability impact at scale. We've looked at our consumption frequency framework, the stage of change our audience may be, whether that's the requirements for successful first trial, or we're already sort of a user, we just need to increase the frequency or the loyalty over time. And to help us best understand our audience or the opportunities in context, we've supported with the primary research guide. So again, what are some of the nuggets, the nuance of our specific audience group or category that can help us to really drive effective solutions? This session is really about the next element of the equation, how we bring best practice provocation and then sometimes discovered practice provocation to help to merge with these contextual insights with that product opportunity of most merit to really drive effective solutions for consumption frequency. So today is very much about exploring some of these best practice areas, and we'll cover a few on the video today, but there are many in the documentation that you've already downloaded for us to see. As we look within the consumption frequency toolkit that you have and downloaded, and so exploring a little bit of the video, important for us to sort of see how this stimulus is broken up. So first we have a tactic description. So what is the label of the tactical strategy? What's a brief explanation of what this tactic hopes to bring? And what's an example of best practice or as is on occasion discovered practice, how we can actually bring that to our category. And then finally, some ideation provocation. So we're sort of big believers in asking questions of the challenge that we can then sort of liberate a creative solution. If we don't ask a question, we'll never know the answer. And we'll find that many times, actually, some of these questions aren't relevant, but it's about the one that is that can unlock the solution for consumption frequency. So if we look at how we've deployed this methodology for a partner in the G4G or the Growth for Growth network, working with Danone and Fan Milk in Nigeria, we can see actually how this stimulus has helped to inform even just the packaging and the branding. So going through this exercise, we used a branding and naming exercise about reframing the product to be benefit-led. Right? Happy Meal is a great example of this. We buy it because we fundamentally want our children to be happy. So what's the benefit of this product? And this is a fortified frozen yogurt for women of reproductive age in Nigeria. What is one of the benefits of this that we might articulate as our brand? And really, this is about living in our prime. We're having a maximum energy and health to glow and feel in our prime. So that informed the name of Fan Prime. We explored how we might sort of best illustrate the effectiveness of this product, how it's really working hard for us with iron, with vitamin C, with calcium. And sometimes we might sort of list these out quite simply. What we wanted to do is really make these benefits clear, or these active ingredients really clear. And we'll speak about this strategy in a little bit more detail in a moment. And finally, how we speak to the claim, how we sort of bake the desired consumption frequency into the claim or the call to action. And we see this for Johnson & Johnson bedtime bath, really great way of bundling consumption frequency by tapping into a usage occasion. If we're having a bath time before bedtime, maybe that's a good opportunity to use Johnson & Johnson. We bake that call to action in the claim or the name. So for us, being about daily goodness for your body, having the term daily enhances our chances of more frequent consumption frequency, if that's the expectation. So that's an example of some work within the network that these sorts of tactics and toolkits have helped me liberators to drive an effective brand launch for Fan Milk in Nigeria. As we look at these tactics, again, across our consumption frequency framework, from successful first trial, consumption frequency and frequent consumption and loyal consumption, we can start to see these tactics that we explored in our session some time ago. Again, brand and product characteristics, mass communications, and proximity marketing. And we're going to start with some of the opportunities, just a short list some of the opportunities that live within brand and product. So just this top layer here, brand and product meaning, brand and product name, product format and look, product experience, and some pricing strategies. So these are the tactics that are in the longhand document, and we'll explore at top line. And the first is reframing the benefits. People respond very differently to how information is framed. And we can increase motivation to consume by framing our products in ways that more likely to resonate with our audience. Some classic examples that we can see here about how a brand or a product or a category has been reframed. So spinach with Popeye is now shorthand for strength. A lovely campaign in Australia for bananas, reframed subtly as nature's energy snack. Right? You're capitalizing on existing affiliation with energy snacks, and we're actually making a natural solution for this. Even helping to sort of bridge gaps or perceptual or motivational gaps for things like mushrooms, oftentimes reframed as meat for vegetarians. Right? So we can frame the same product in slightly different ways to increase its attractiveness, to stimulate that first trial, and ultimately seek to achieve more frequent consumption in the future. So when we see these examples also give us provocations or questions that we can ask of our brand or product to drive attractiveness and trial. So how might we reframe our product's benefits to meet the desires of our audience? What analogies might we create to make our benefits clear? How can we live in the world of an analogy to help close that perceptual gap? What does our audience already associate with this benefit? Can we borrow from these cues somehow? Again, if there's folklore about spinach and strength, how might we make that a central element of our concept idea? So it's so intrinsically linked, we can help relay its effectiveness. So that's the first tactic, looking at reframing the benefits. The second tactic that we explored, and I mentioned just now, speaking about fan prime, is really making the benefits clear. And when it comes to perception and perceptions of trustworthiness and effectiveness and oftentimes perceived value, seeing is really believing. Right? We really value seeing the work that's going under the bonnet. Right? Sometimes we find that actually when something happens too fast, Google serves up a solution in 0.005 of a second. It can feel sort of too good to be true. So recognizing the labor that's involved, or providing a sense of transparency in the active ingredients or the working of an active ingredient, we can boost its perceived effectiveness. Sometimes this is called the labor illusion. Right? We can just show the working. Right? And we see this, for example, let's look at the finished Powerball, a lovely example of how design cues try to illustrate and reinforce what piece is working really hard for us. Right? We know that little red, that red sort of Powerball in the middle, that's like the nuclear center. That's the piece that's doing the difference. And just by coloration and design, we can help achieve that. Rory Sutherland, the founder of our practice, often speaks about McLean's triple stripe toothpaste. Fundamentally, when we have it in our mouth, it all turns into a big white paste. But as it's displayed with red and white and blue, we start to think of, oh, those are the three things that it's currently doing for us. So subtle design cues can help to reinforce the benefits of this. So how can we then extract this value into our product, our packaging, our experience? How could we use color differently in our product to show that it's full benefits? Are there pieces that are the special bits, or are there elements that are the less special bits? So we could actually believe that that is the piece that's making a difference. How can we use different shapes to help others believe in the product's promise? Are there ways in which we can, again, use product design to show the effort and the work behind this, or the active ingredient that's propelling us forward? And how might we make it easier for people to see or appreciate or believe our active ingredients? Again, are there other cues that we can bake into our product experience or in our packaging to reinforce this perceptual gap? You might say your promise is this, but how can we actually help our brains see that in action? And sometimes subtle cues can help us to achieve this, to stimulate first trial. The second area that we want to explore, the third area now, is about embedding existing value within a product or brand experience. So if there might be something that's sort of less attractive, that's sort of a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, what's a way in which we can bundle and embed existing motivational value in a product to increase the likelihood of its outcome, the outcome of our action, and boosting motivation to consume. If we look on the right-hand side of this chart here, we see Cornetto. Again, I don't think there's many sort of motivational challenges to consume, but we can learn from Cornetto that they sort of embed a chocolate plug in the bottom of the cone. So if anyone ever had an issue with consuming the cone all the way down to the bottom, you'd probably be more likely to do it because you know there's a wad of chocolate there. And there's also another psychological benefit to this. That's what's known as the peak end effect. We often remember our experiences based on a peak in the experience, the peak of pleasure or pain, and how they end. So by ending with a sense of enjoyment, by baking something intrinsically motivating at the end, we then can reinforce the memory of that experience and boost the likelihood of retrial. So what questions might this pose us in our own universe? What's already motivating for our audience? How might we embed this into our product? And that could be from a toy car to a wad of chocolate at the base of a Cornetto cone. What types of motivating additions might make sense for our product? And how might we make this a part of the product experience? Again, 4 questions that we'd like to ask to see how we can utilize this within your brand or product experience. They don't all have to be successful. You just need one to make the difference. Now we move into a tactic about making it automatic. We have a tendency to go with the flow with a preset of options, and oftentimes we avoid making active choices because they require more effort. It takes a lot of calories, a lot of glucose for us to think. So we tend to navigate based on the environment that's set in front of us. So what this means is that we can actually make, if we can make an outcome a part of a process, we can increase the likelihood of that occurring. So I've seen, for example, in hospitals recently, that door handles have been embedded with soap deployment machines. You open the door and the soap is simply there, right? It's part of the existing experience. And the next piece we'd like to share that's a lovely case in this space is a piece of work that Ogilvy drove in Mumbai in partnership with Savlon to see how we can encourage and enable children to clean their hands more effectively when it comes to lunch times in schools. So some of the provocations this territory gives us is how might we make it natural for our audience to consume this every day? Right? How might our audience add our product to every day? In what instances might our audience consume something similar without even thinking about it? So what are these opportunities for us to associate, embed our product into these activities in something just as subtle as soap granules in a chalk stick to again, soap deployment in a door handle, right? We can start to think about not asking someone to do anything different, but capitalizing on what they're already doing to increase the likelihood of our outcome. Now we move to encouraging investment. Right? By encouraging a higher immediate investment or outlay, we can commit our audience to a longer term relationship with us. We have a sense of sunk cost. We find it very hard to sort of cut our losses and walk away. If we're by, it's often known as the razor blade strategy. Right? If we have a Gillette razor, we're more likely to use Gillette blades more frequently. Right? If we've invested to get a Glade scent maker, we're more likely to get Glade scents to specifically to use in that maker, but also because we've already invested in this service. So by thinking about the ways in which we can actually build, infrastructure utility that requires some sort of investment, then we can hope to encourage that action over time. So what are some of the questions this might pose with us? And again, this is an interesting one when we're looking at low-income consumers and what investment is comfortable. But what we're looking to do is increase our skin in the game and an outcome. We want people to buy in to a particular belief or a promise. We often say that one of the greatest strategies to help sort of kitchen paper towel stay in business is just having kitchen paper towel holders, because you walk into someone's kitchen and they've got an empty kitchen paper towel holder, and that's not the signal you want to be thinking. So it's this infrastructure that goes around the product that makes the product more useful and frequent. So how might we make the consumption of our product more enjoyable and more unique? What could we produce that ensures that people only consume our product versus one that might solve a slightly similar need without the nutritional benefit. Right? So I say need as in thirst or satiety. How might we supplement this with something that actually drives a nutrition outcome or a broad lifestyle health outcome? How might we make a particular utility that only works with our product? Right, again, so this is essentially Nespresso was launched off this until everyone else was able to have access in the pod. We create something of unique value that we can drive that outcome for our particular brand or product that drives the desired health or nutritional outcome. So again, a few more questions for us to consider in our innovation. So that's exploring some of the tactics and strategies for the brand and the product experience. Now we want to explore a few elements of mass communications, the second tier of or the second bucket, I suppose, that we explore across the consumption frequency framework. And here we'll see that we explore different sort of messenger-led strategies, but also message and campaign approaches. So firstly, let's look at messenger. And one particular tactic that we'd like to share is about the convert communicator. That sometimes convert communicators can be perceived as sort of more credible sources of information because they're arguing against sort of a previously held view. So if someone was like, I used to think this, but now I think this, that can be a more powerful communicator for our message. So what, again, questions might this pose us or our mass communications campaign? Who might have previously dismissed our offer that's now a fan? Right? Who might have changed their mind about the benefits of the products of their services? Who wasn't sort of bought into our category and now are advocates for it that we can utilize? How can we provide a platform for these individuals to share their story? So not only who is the convert communicator, but how might we liberate their influence to inspire our audience to and consumption frequency. So the second mass communication strategy or tactic that we wanted to share was about anchoring, and that we can anchor consumption. So anchoring is an interesting element of our perception and influence. Essentially, we view the world relatively, not absolutely. We're not perfect navigators of value or quantity, what we should consume, what we shouldn't consume. So by posing anchor or reference points, we can work to sway volumes of purchase and consumption. And here we see three examples of this. Some work from Weet-Bix, who have always had a bit of a competitive edge to the consumption of Weet-Bix. So how many Weet-Bix can you do? And Brett Lee, the famous Australian cricketer, can do 7. So we're anchoring, well, if Brett Lee can do 7, well, at least I can do 5. So that's a way in which we can think about anchoring desired consumption, just like eating 5 a day. Right? In a perfect world, everyone would be eating 5 a day. But once we establish this norm, this anchor point that we should be eating 5, then the likelihood of more people having 4 or 3 than 2 without it is increased. By creating an anchor point, we can start to guide reference of consumption. And we've also seen this in guiding a perception of purchase behavior. So a slightly different category, but certainly worth us exploring for shared learnings. KFC Australia found that by creating an anchored maximum of their purchases, by saying you can only buy a maximum of 4 portions of their chips of their value range, they were able to increase purchasing rates. So by creating an anchor reference point, a maximum, we can also seek to guide people in this direction. So anchoring is a really incredible strategy for us to deploy in consumption frequency and volume. So what anchor might guide consumption? What anchor would be most relevant for us? Again, if we look at what Lucie shared some time ago on the opportunity selection framework, we have a particular stage of desired consumption frequency for nutritional impact. So what is that level of frequency? And maybe we might find that by anchoring slightly higher than that, we're able to land on that desired frequency. Might we anchor our product on variants, right? So we have multiple different product SKUs. Can we have one different SKU a day as an anchor point? So a different flavor for every day of the week. How might we set an appropriate motivational challenge to encourage consumption? Just like Brett Lee in the Weet-Bix, can you eat 5 days a week? Is that a challenge that we might set? It's a bit like the Special K challenge. And how might we include a recommended quantity or limit to encourage the appropriate consumption? So just providing a reference. Right? Sometimes this can be really easy to do, but we fail to do it. So just providing an expectation or a reference of consumption, that at least that can become an anchor point to boost it. The next element of broader communications around salient feedback. So in learning, and particularly for categories like nutrition, say, where you might eat healthy for a week and expect to feel better, and that's not necessarily the case, right? It takes time for us to experience the benefits, and sometimes we don't experience those benefits because they happen so slowly. The same is true of smoking cessation. It's very hard to quit smoking for a week and you don't necessarily feel any better. But how can we provide feedback that something is changing, something is making a difference? And we see salient feedback cues in many parts of life. We have nappy manufacturers that help parents to know whether the child's diaper or nappy needs to be changed. We see really great evidence in speeding and looking at traffic control, just providing a salient feedback reference point of what the current speed is. Even more powerful if you have a bit of an effective smiley face or a frowny face, by giving people this sort of feedback of how they're performing, if it's good or if it's less than good. That helps us in our learning, right? And we can start to encourage the behavior more frequently over time. So the next example that we'll share a video of is how providing salient feedback within a user experience and driven on a broader messaging campaign help to encourage children to drink more water. Again, when you look at the prospect of a flavored juice or a soft drink in some markets, it's give you an immediate hit of flavor, of energy. It's very hard to encourage children to drink water. You can't necessarily feel the benefits of hydration so clearly. So what the team did was develop an app. It's called Tummy Fish. They're basically, children have a Tamagotchi-like fish in their stomach, and you hold your phone over your mobile, you'll see your phone over your stomach, you'll see in a moment. The more water you drink, the bigger the fish, the more fun and more toys the fish has. If you report to drink more flavored drinks or soft drinks, the water gets murky, the fish gets smaller, the fun goes. We begin to sort of create some salient feedback on their actions. So some of the questions that this work and others like it can pose us for our challenge. How might we provide our audience with a sense of positive feedback for consuming? How might we help make our audience feel stronger or healthier straight away? This might not be easy, but if we don't ask the question, we'll never achieve that outcome. How might our packaging help our audience know when it's the right time to consume? Does the color change at particular times of the day to act as a trigger? Does an element of the packaging change as a way in which it shows that you're eating enough or you're not eating enough? How might we demonstrate the health impacts of poor nutritional activity in a more visually salient way? Sometimes we're talking about sort of reinforcing the positive behavior, but how might we help people to realize and see and provide feedback on the damage we might be doing slowly over time? So another series of provocations for our innovation together to drive products and communications to enhance consumption frequency. So the last bucket of activity we're going to explore is how we develop consumption frequency tactics for proximity marketing. Right? And here again, we have a suite of different tactical or strategic areas by which we can play. Looking at the messenger and different maybe sort of celebrity endorsement or higher order convert communicators. Here's when we talk about maybe people within the community, people within our friendship network or hospital network. We're looking at on-the-ground activities. We're looking at different distribution models and really innovative distribution models. And this is where, in partnership with Hystra and Lucie and the team, they're just doing some fantastic work in really shifting the dial of how distribution models can make a massive difference here. Looking at personal confirmation, looking at reminders to trigger action, right? Just something so simple embedded into technology or into the product itself, looking at sales schemes and looking at word of mouth creation to really trigger that successful first trial. So there's many different tactics, again, in the consumption frequency toolkit that you now have, but we're just going to explore a few here now. And the first, as I mentioned, is really looking at the messenger effect. Sometimes who delivers information is more powerful than the information itself. And sometimes also the messages might be quite surprising, right? We might think that this needs to be from the government, but actually we find that the government's the least relevant person for us to encourage this activity. At worst, we experience something known as reactance. If the messenger and the message is too dissimilar to our receiver, then people tend to react against it. We might repel, we might do the opposite. So understanding the messenger is extremely important. If it's husbands, parents, local influences, even down to the general practitioner, doctor, or the pharmacist. And as I mentioned, sometimes it's an sort of unexpected messenger. And in a moment, we'll look at a quick case study for some fantastic work that occurred in Zimbabwe when looking at family planning and safe sex advisory. So some questions that messenger within proximity marketing might give us is, who does our audience respect or relate to? Who do they see as an authority? How might we encourage trusted messengers to act as spokespeople or provide testimonials for us? How might we encourage our messengers in a novel or unexpected way? Right? So these might be unexpected messages to have powerful impacts, but how we encourage them to respond or act on our behalf differently. Again, not every question is going to help us all the time, but we just need one to unlock new value. Another element when it comes to proximity is really about social cues. We're social creatures, and providing signals of our status, our wealth, our virtue is really important for us. And sometimes maybe unexpected to us. There are some external signals that we put into the market, that we're walking around, the clothes that we wear, the way we cut our hair, it all speaks to something of our values and our focus. Right? Apple created such distinct white headphones, particularly when they went positive. It starts a whole new movement of ways of thinking about and illustrating consumption. Right? We can more clearly see someone's allegiance to a brand because it's quite conspicuous. We can see it in the world around us. And we're heavily social creatures. So if we see other people doing something, we're more likely to want to follow suit. Right? Social norms heavily influence our activities. So by baking social signals into our product or our product experience, whether that's looking at different colored wristbands or even quite sort of salient or attractive elements of our product, what can we again bake in to these proximity marketing, if it's gift or purchase, if it's the packaging itself, that can help others around our audience to see that consumption is occurring. If we can see consumption is occurring, then we can create this norm. If many people within my perceived norm group is consuming this, then I should too. So it's really just about using everything at our disposal to create this signal and drive attractiveness. So some key questions that come from this for us is, how might we help to signal status or virtue? What might that signal be of wealth or community status, or virtue as sacrifice or community good? What elements of our product mix might stand out to make consumption more conspicuous? For Apple, really interesting because most of the time the iPhone is in your pocket. It's not so conspicuous, but the headphone certainly can be. What additional elements might we add to our product to enable signaling? And this could just be simple coloration of an existing product or creating something bespoke or something different. Again, just some questions to help us to prompt different solutions to this challenge. Now I'm going to hand to Lucie.
Thank you, Sam. And we're now going to move to a slightly different way of looking at this, still in the proximity marketing, but looking at how door-to-door distribution, which one might usually think of as a distribution system, and how it can actually play a role also from a marketing perspective on improving consumption frequency. Direct distribution channels actually regroup a whole range of potential direct distribution models, which can go from actual door-to-door to also street vending at places where people are very often. So it doesn't actually have to be literally people knocking on doors, but it has to be a system that basically reminds people of taking the product regularly. So in particular, if we look at the two models that are described here, we have done a quick zoom on a Brandor door-to-door model, which is one done by Nutritious on this picture, which is a social enterprise based out of Madagascar that sell fortified porridge for young children, 6 to 24-month-old. And in addition to selling the dry porridge in shops around Antananarivo, they also have sales ladies like the one you can see here, which they call animatrices, who go door to door every morning at the time of breakfast with a warm container full of ready-to-eat porridge, which they distribute to children and obviously get paid for as they do so. And that has actually proved to be an extremely effective marketing tactics to get the product known at the time where retailers weren't actually ready to take it on their shelves for fear that it wouldn't move. But because the product was ready to eat, because it was easy to consume for the children and it didn't give any extra work to the mother, and because the children liked it, this product grew very popular. And basically now when these ladies come every morning, they are met by a cohort of children chanting "Kobaina, Kobaina," which is the name of the product, because they love it. And you can imagine the kind of free advertising effect this has. So a very effective way to actually create a brand name for oneself, not just to distribute a product. In the areas where they are, they found in a study done a few years ago that the children were eating on average 18 portions of the products per month. So we're not there yet in terms of daily consumption frequency, but it's still a very high consumption frequency compared to typical products. And 17% of the children in the area where they delivered were actually eating more than 25 per month, so nearly one a day. In addition, they really managed to get to a high penetration in these areas much faster than in areas that did pure retail a few years later when the product was more popular. Another potential way to do door-to-door is to do it not as a branded scenario, but through third-party vendors, either formal or informal. In the case you see in the picture, this is as you can see, a sort of rickshaw is not the right word, a tricycle puller, I guess, who is carrying big containers of water from and to the Nandi water kiosk, which purifies water in rural areas of India. So every day, this guy basically goes to his clients, takes the water container, brings it back to the plant, gets it filled with water, and brings it back to his clients. The containers or the water actually costs about 2 to 5 times as much, depending on how far you are from the water purification plant, if you get it delivered. But even in rural areas of India, people are ready to pay for this service because it actually helps them. It's actually not fun to carry these big jugs in very hot weather. And the advantage of this system is, again, the kind of advertising effect that goes with it, because this guy is obviously going the same route every day, and people can see how easy it would be to have their own jug as well delivered every day to have clean water at all times. So what kind of question can this raise for you? A first one is to figure out what is the best, the most appropriate types of sales force you might have, because this model also has cost. So there's really a kind of cost benefit analysis, if you want, to be made between how much of a distribution cost does it offset for you, or even are people ready to pay more because of that distribution that gets the product to their doorstep, and how much is the kind of marketing benefit, image benefits, additional consumption benefits you get from having that kind of direct sales force in place. There's a question of seeing if you can piggyback on other systems, looking at whether there are existing door-to-door deliveries or existing street selling that you can leverage. There's an aspect of thinking about the product mix that can make consumption frequency easier. In the two cases we discussed, it's actually just one product that's being delivered, but you also have models that are multi-product to propose more of a choice to consumers on a daily basis. And finally, what kind of equipment are required and how to finance them? Should it be the micro-entrepreneur, him or herself, who gets this equipment, or is the business case sufficiently good that the company can basically provide those for free or at subsidized rates? So another way to do distribution that also can help trigger consumption frequency is to go through retail, but ensuring that there are sufficient retailer incentives so that retailer really push the product for frequent consumptions. For new products in particular, what we have found, which you can see on the little graph on the left there, is that, or on the right, sorry, if we move to on the left, I'm not good at this. Anyway, on the left is that basically we've represented here the retail margins that are necessary for different products of different maturity. And for newer products, so when you do a market introduction, basically the margins required for retailers to take the product on their shelves are higher because they don't know yet how these products are going to move, which is reflected by the kind of darker blue bars you can see there. So you can push these products to your retailers by motivating them to take it, given how much money they're going to make on it. Another thing you can do to motivate these retailers that can be even more focused on triggering consumption frequency is to provide them with branded materials, and that can make specifically the case of that consumption frequency, but also thinking about incentives and loyalty programs. These programs are not only for consumers, but also for retailers. As you can see on the little graph there, Milkyat, which is a brand of fortified dairy drink in Indonesia, has this kind of programs for the retailers, and they can win products that give value to their shop, like coolers or special containers, and that also help advertise the brand. And that motivates them to make sure they restock frequently and potentially push the product a bit as well to their consumers. So if we move to the question this creates, there is, thinking about what is the right incentive for retailers to stock your products. Is there any way to help them notice when the stock is running out, which can be a calendar with the number of products sold, or increasingly, there are also digital solutions that help do that. And also thinking about what added value can be provided to these retailers to boost their sales. And these can probably be great loyalty gifts that you could provide them with. Finally, the last tactics we will share today is subscription schemes. So not just rewarding loyalty, but actually ensuring consumers are into a scheme that motivates them to purchase truly daily. So you might remember the Nandi distribution tricycle we just saw. Nandi also implements this kind of system with prepaid cards in India. So the little card you can see there, which is basically a card for 30 days of water, which you can only use for a month. So it has an expiration date. If you don't use the 30 jugs by the month, your card is not valid anymore. You have to buy a new one. So this is obviously a great motivator to make sure people come every day to collect their water or get somebody to deliver it for them, which is very important to ensure the quality of the water and the health impact, the nutrition impact we're thinking about. NutriFaso in Burkina Faso tried to implement a similar card model. In their case, it was 13 days for 2 weeks minus 1 day. And actually, they were surprised to find that about 50% of their clients quickly decided to take on the card, even though it wasn't compulsory, because they said it was actually easier for them to have the bulk of the money once a month than to make sure they had the coin every day to pay for the porridge. NutriFaso set up a quite similar system to the one we saw on NutriZaza, only in Burkina Faso. So consumers can actually also find real value in this subscription scheme. It means they don't have to think about it every day. You know, it's done once. You don't have to think about the money later. And in a way, it forces them to adopt the behaviors that they know they might not manage to pull together if they're not supported in that. So the question this raises is, what is the right way to sell this product as subscription? It might not always be the same amount of time. You might want to have a payment before a payment or a different form of payment scheme, figuring out what is the right frequency for the customers, both to consume the product, but also to pay for the product. If there are other products that could piggyback on this subscription. And finally, is it actually not just something that helps you, but also and helps the end impact you're looking for, but also helps convenience and reinforces customer trust. So that's it for the cues we wanted to share today. And that's actually it for the 4 modules. For those of you who have followed the 4, yay, congratulations. You're now at the end of your journey with us. But as you know, you can find back all the material we discussed here on the links that you probably have somewhere below this video. And we very much look forward to seeing you take a look at the other videos if you haven't done so yet, to learn more about how to promote consumption frequency for healthy products. Thank you, Sam, for being with me on this one. I also really look forward to our next collaboration. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Lucie. Thanks all.